Okay, we all think we know the story of Santa Claus, right? But what if I told you the real story is a wild ride of grave robbing, political rebellion, and, get this, pickled children?
Yeah, that jolly man in the red suit we all know and love, he's really just the final chapter. His secret history is way more shocking and complex than you can imagine. We're talking saints, demons, and even political warfare. So, forget the North Pole for a second. Santa's real origin story is this long, winding path through history, and it takes some pretty strange detours into Still in Bones, banned holidays, and straight-up political propaganda. See, the Santa Claus we know isn't just one guy. He's more like a composite character, built over centuries from saints, rebels, and yeah, even marketing. So to really understand how we got the jolly man in the red suit, we need to travel back in time and peel back the layers of the legend, starting with his most recent transformation. All right, let's start with the image we all know. Because that red-suited, white-bearded man we recognize, he's a surprisingly recent American invention. Seriously. He didn't just pop out of nowhere fully formed, he was carefully and pretty deliberately crafted. It's actually kind of amazing how quickly our modern Santa was created, all in the 1800s. It was like a perfect storm of literature and art. It all started with the author Washington Irving, who kind of planted the seed of this magical gift giver. Then a super famous poem gave him his reindeer and sleigh. And finally, a cartoonist named Thomas Nast came along and solidified the look we know today, even giving him an address, the North Pole. And this poem, you probably know it as "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," this was the absolute turning point. It single-handedly defined Santa's personality and his whole look. It's what transformed him from this kind of stern religious figure into the jolly old elf that's at the heart of the modern American Christmas.
But, before he was an American gift giver, his English ancestor, a guy called Father Christmas, was a symbol of political rebellion. To see how that happened, we have to go way back to 17th century England, which was a time of massive civil and religious unrest.
So to get this whole rebellion thing, you first need to know who was in charge: the Puritans. And to them, Christmas wasn't a holy day. No, they saw it as an excuse for, and I'm quoting here, carnal and sensual delights. All the feasting and drinking, to them, that was a total corruption of faith. So when they seized power, they were absolutely determined to shut it all down.
And they did. In 1647, the Puritan-led Parliament officially banned Christmas. For 13 years. Can you imagine? Town criers were literally walking the streets shouting, "No Christmas!" Soldiers were patrolling for any sign of a festive celebration, seizing food and forcing shops to stay open. This was a full-scale war on the holiday.
So in response to all this, a brand new character starts showing up in protest pamphlets. And he wasn't a gift giver, not at all. He was a symbol of defiance. Pro-Christmas writers basically invented Old Father Christmas to personify the very joy the government was trying to stamp out. He was, for all intents and purposes, a piece of political propaganda. A writer named John Taylor was a really key voice in this protest. His pamphlets depicted Father Christmas as this sad, elderly figure just wandering the country, wondering why he wasn't welcome anymore. And through this character, Taylor was championing the common person's right to celebrate against this really grim regime.
Okay, but where did even this rebellious Father Christmas come from? To find the original source, we have to go back even further, all the way to a 4th century monk in modern-day Turkey. Believe it or not, all of these different legends trace back to one real person.
This is where the seed of the entire legend was planted. Nicolaus was a real guy, a bishop in the city of Myra, who lived way back around 280 AD. And the story goes that after inheriting a huge fortune, he was absolutely determined to give it all away, but in secret.
And this story? This is the bedrock of the entire legend. It's what established Nicholas as a secret gift giver, and that's been a core part of his identity ever since. He didn't want any credit, he just wanted to help. And that little detail about the gold landing in stockings, that's the earliest root of a tradition we still practice today. How cool is that?
After he died, his tomb became a huge pilgrimage site. But the story takes up, well, a bizarre turn with a literal grave robbery, or as the thieves themselves called it, a rescue mission. So, in 1087, some Italian sailors from a city called Bari show up in Myra. They break into the church, they overpower the monks, and they steal the saint's entire skeleton. They claimed they were rescuing the holy relics from Turk rule, and then they brought the bones back to Italy. And this act of theft, this heist, made St. Nicholas an absolute superstar in Western Europe. His fame just exploded. 500. That's roughly how many tiny bone fragments the sailors from Bari left behind. But it doesn't end there. Not to be outdone, Venetian crusaders showed up about a decade later and stole the rest. You have to understand, in medieval Europe, having a saint's relics was a source of immense spiritual power and prestige. And now, two rival Italian cities were claiming to have the real Saint Nicholas.
And as his fame grew, these truly bizarre and frankly gruesome legends started getting attached to him. The most famous one is the story of him resurrecting 3 boys who had been murdered and pickled in a barrel. Yeah, pickled. This cemented his role as a protector of children. But he wasn't always so gentle. Another legend claims he got so angry during a big theological debate that he walked over and slapped a heretic right across the face. So this was a saint of fierce passion, not just some gentle gift giver.
So what this whole journey shows us is that Santa Claus isn't just one character. He's a composite figure, built layer by layer over 1,700 years, with each era adding something new to the story.
He started out as Saint Nicholas, right? A holy man who was revered for his secret charity and, yes, his sometimes pretty gruesome miracles. He was a figure of deep, deep religious faith.
Then, centuries later, he becomes the defiant Father Christmas, a political symbol of joy fighting back against oppression. He stood for feasting and fun in the face of forced austerity.
And finally, he was completely transformed by American writers and artists into the jolly commercial icon we know today, this magical figure of childhood wonder and generosity.
So when you get right down to it, the man in the red suit is basically a mirror. He reflects centuries of cultural change. He's been a symbol of secret piety, of open rebellion, and finally, of commercial celebration.
It seems like every generation kind of reinvents Santa in its own image. He's been a pious saint, a political rebel, and a commercial mascot. As our own world keeps changing, it really makes you wonder, who will he become next?